Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today I want to give you some of my thoughts on Alan Wake 2, just do a super quick review on the game now that I have completed it. And this is just going to be a super casual review, nothing super technical. If you're looking for a technical review on specs and different things for the game, a little more in depth, I like to watch ACG. I'll link them below. I really like the reviews. They're very in-depth and pretty impartial. So I do appreciate them, and I do watch them a lot of times before I make a decision whether or not I'm going to purchase a game. But this is going to just be a much more casual review from somebody who plays games very casually. And for anybody who's been watching me for a long time, you know that Red Dead is my main game. It's the game I absolutely love that I play most of the time, and I don't play a ton of variety. That being said, I do play some variety on the channel, and some of you have seen sometimes I've started a game and I've streamed it maybe once or twice and I haven't completed it, and that's because I'm pretty picky about games. It's not super hard to please me, but like if a story doesn't pull me in right away or the controls are lacking, then I have a really hard time getting into it. So those are the two things that are really important for me. Is the story needs to be compelling, I need to care about the characters, and the controls can't be clunky. They need to be fairly smooth or intuitive or easy to learn, as I don't want to spend a long time on something super overly complicated and just spend a lot of time having to try to figure it out. So if you are wondering what types of games I like, Red Dead Redemption 2 is my favorite game of all time. Red Dead Online, I play that all the time. Ghost of Tsushima is probably my second favorite, very close to Red Dead. I like games like God of War. I recently got into Diablo. It's the first time I'd ever played that type of game before, but absolutely loving it as well. Spider-Man 2 was amazing. So those are some of the types of games that I do like. And to give you an idea of some games that I've tried that I haven't been able to get into would be things like Horizon Zero Dawn, which beautiful open world. The controls are very smooth and satisfying, but the story is not compelling enough for me at this point. Cyberpunk was another one where I'm not a huge first person type of person. I really like third person. The controls are pretty smooth, but again, the story is not pulling me in. And The Witcher, again, beautiful open world story, very compelling, definitely the kind of thing that I love. But the controls are super clunky, so it was really hard for me to get into it. So those are kind of some of my likes and dislikes as we go into this really quick review, just to give you an idea of some of the games. If there's any similarities between what you like and I like and don't like, it may give you an idea of whether or not Alan Wake 2 might be a game you'd enjoy. So without further ado, let's get into it. So starting off, obviously Alan Wake 2 is a sequel to the first game, Alan Wake. And if you've never played that one, I do highly recommend you give it a try first, as you could play through the second one without having played the first one, but it'll make so much more sense if you've played that first game. You'll be much more connected to the characters. It holds up pretty well. It's an older game. I think it's from 2010. It's 13 years old, but the controls actually and the graphics hold up very well for an older game. Like I mentioned, I have a really hard time getting into games where the controls are really super clunky, and I didn't really have too much of an issue with the first one. So I definitely recommend it if you're thinking about the second one at all. You haven't played the first one, definitely start with the first one. I didn't do the DLCs for the first one, so I don't know that that's necessary, but definitely play the first one. That being said, the second game I enjoyed so much more even than the first game, and I think that's because you get to play as two different characters in Alan Wake 2. You get to play as Saga, who is an FBI agent, and you get to play as Wake, who is the original character. He's the writer from the first game. And the differences in the gameplay is super fun. I actually really enjoyed Saga's gameplay a lot. So playing as an FBI agent, it's all about putting the clues together. So it's a lot of detective work. So if you don't like slow pace games where you're collecting clues and putting, having questions about maybe what the next step would be and then making deductions and all that, you're probably not going to like this game, because it is a very slow paced game. It is very story driven. You're going around, you're going to be collecting a lot of clues, collecting a lot of items. And for me, the story was so rich, like I wanted to know what was going to happen next. But if you don't like slow paced games, give this one a pass for sure, because you won't enjoy it. like I said, Saga's gameplay was my favorite because I do really enjoy that type of detective work. Wake's gameplay was a lot more like the first game, and you're in kind of the dark place, and it's like I said, a lot darker. There's a lot more of the like Taken, the shadows. So you kind of have to be on your toes a little bit more. And it's a little bit trickier because for his gameplay, you need to be able to really have kind of a puzzle mind, because not only do you need to be able to put different plot points on different scenes, and they'll explain that in the game if you play it, but basically you have a plot board and there's going to be different scenes that are playing out in that chapter, and there's going to be different plot points that you could change. So the idea is always about changing the story to try to get through to the next part, or to try to change it to help make things better. But in addition to that, he's got this like lamp that he would need to change where the light is. And it gets pretty tricky because you have to maybe either take the light or put the light back, and also have the correct plot point on and kind of make your way through, because as you do these things, it changes the scene, meaning it actually changes the environment. Whereas you might not have been able to get through an opening before by putting the right plot point on, or taking the light in the right spot, or putting the light in, you actually open up a way for you to get through to another area. I will say that I was very frustrated at first with his gameplay, because when you first switch to him, you're in kind of a subway scene. And in my opinion, that was the hardest part of the entire game, was trying to find my way through there. The rest of his missions were not as tricky as that. I did have to use a guide for some of it because, again, I don't have a puzzle brain, so it's not intuitive for me. So if you are really put off by kind of like puzzles and figuring out stuff, and you're not someone who likes to use a guide, if you use a guide, it's fine. Then again, this might not be the right game for you, because it does take a little bit of like pause where you have to kind of really think about what you're doing and figure it out. And at the same time, you have limited supplies and, enemies around you. And so there's only so much lingering you can do because if you keep getting attacked, you don't have the supplies to keep fighting enemies. So you really have to kind of think about that too. So just a couple things right off the bat there. If you're someone who doesn't like any type of puzzles, you don't want to use a guide, you don't like slower paced gameplay, you don't like detective work, like this is probably not going to be a game for you. Okay, so I know I said this was going to be a quick review, but without a script, I tend to just talk a lot when there's a subject that I really enjoy. And let me just say, moving into the rest of this review, I actually loved this game. And I hate horror, and I hate survival games. Like, I hate them. I hate not having enough supplies. Red Undead Nightmare, not my favorite when it comes to the Red Dead franchise, because again, you just have limited ammo and I don't like it at all. But Alan Wake 2 is so much fun. So let me tell you the things that I did like about it. Yes, at the beginning of the game, you do suffer when it comes to supplies. You have to really think about it. Some of the first earlier bosses were really tough because you don't have enough ammo and you're going to die. And you just have to accept that. You're going to die because it forces you to kind of think about how you're moving and your gameplay a little bit and how you can conserve ammo. So if you're okay with that, then you'll be fine. If you get easily frustrated, which I do a lot of times, it might be kind of hard at first because like some of the missions are going to be a little tricky at first because you're still trying to build up your supplies. That being said, there are lots of different save points around. Now, that's another thing that you might not like either. If you don't like the fact that you can't just save anywhere, that might be kind of tricky for you. You do have to get to a safe zone in order to save. And that can be a little bit tricky at first because early on, there's not as many. And that mission I mentioned for Wake in the subway, there's less. Once you get more into the game, there's actually a lot of save points. It's not as big of a deal, but early on, it's a little bit more of a big of a deal. There's less save areas, less supplies. But once you get into the game a little bit, even at those safe havens, you're going to have a shoebox where you can drop supplies off. I definitely recommend that because you're going to start to pick up a lot more and you will eventually be able to have more supplies. You can actually open that up more so for Saga than Wake, but you're going to want to definitely get more inventory space. You can hold more stuff. By the end of the game, Saga's supplies are great. Wake's are still a little bit on the low side, but you don't need them as much for him because of the type of gameplay that you're doing. So like I said, things that I loved about this game. The story was amazing. It's weird and crazy, and it's full of twists and turns, and you just don't know where it's going. And there's like plot twists, and it's like I was constantly like intrigued and like wanting to know what was going to happen next. And you're kind of going through, and as you hear the pages in the story, and you're going through these missions, some of it is just downright crazy, and you're just like, so I really enjoyed that. It kept me on my toes. It kept me interested. It kept me engaged and excited. The music is top tier in this game. It is absolutely phenomenal. I loved the music. I actually listen to the soundtrack now outside the game because it's so great. Like, they did a really good job with that. One of my favorite missions in the game, I forget the title. I think it's called We Sing. It's a Wake mission, and it's basically like Alan Wake the musical, and you're going through this set where it's like a musical. It's like singing the whole kind of story out with Wake and Dora, and they're singing, and there's the band. And he's kind of going through and walking through, and you're kind of playing it out, and it's so much fun. I actually posted a video of it, but again, if you're thinking about playing, don't ruin it. Don't watch it, just play through on your own because it's super fun. And like I said, survival horror, not my favorite, but it's not so bad in this game. Yes, there are jump scares. So if you really don't like any type of jump scare, like I hate jump scares, but this was okay. Yes, it got me. Yes, I did jump scare a lot. But it was okay. I was okay doing it. So it wasn't bad. I still loved the game despite that, but you kind of have to know your limits. Some of the enemies do move very fast, and I don't like that. That's another thing that like creeps me out. At no point did I stop playing the game and felt like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to go to sleep now, I'm gonna have a nightmare. It's not that kind of scary. It's when you're playing it, it's tense, the music will ramp up, and you know something's gonna happen, you know there's gonna be that like little jump there. The enemies might move a little fast, but at no point when I logged off did I feel like, oh, I'm taking it with me, which I do for a lot of horror stuff. So that's just something as well. So I highly recommend this game if you love intricate stories, you love detective work, you love great music. The combat is very simple, so it's not super involved. It's not very technical. So if you like really technically like intricate games, like this is a lot simpler. You've got a flashlight, you've got a weapon, basically. You've got healing supplies. That's pretty much it. So, but like I said, I super enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. If you have any questions about it, let me know. I'm happy to answer if you're like on the fence. Cause again, this was very much out of my genre, not the typical game I would play at all. But it's standout. If this game won Game of the Year, I would totally understand. Like, I think it deserves it. I think it's a masterpiece. I can't wait to see what they do next with the franchise as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this kind of rambling review. I definitely give it, 10 stars. Like, fantastic. I loved it. There's some frustrating things here or there, as you go through. But overall, I thought the game was pretty fantastic. So thank you guys so much for listening. Really appreciate all of you. If you have any questions about the game or any comments, if you played it yourself, leave it in the comments below. I'd appreciate it if you'd leave it a like. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.